know and love come to you like the sound of equipment being thrown from a moving van, the sound of dead cell phones and oil rigs, the sound of empty parking lots and school buses. They love to live and live to love. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesus Children of America, the White Stripes.
Hello, come on in. The water's great. My name is Ryan Schaap, and this is the hardest podcast, a podcast celebrating the White Stripes' entire musical catalog, one song at a time. And this week, it's Astro, off their first album. A great little song that has a catchy as hell riff, some unusual lyrics, and maybe you're going into the episode wondering, what is the Astro? Well, we'll tell you, because we got the answer for you. I just created this audio file in Adobe Audition, and I called it Astro Intro, which, that rhymes. So I hope you're all doing well. I missed you. I hope the transition back to school, to work, or, summer's over, so you got to get the kids back to school, or you got to go to school yourself, or maybe you were on summer vacation and you got to go back to work. I hope all that's going well for you. I remember you saying, you were a little nervous, a little bit of stress, and that happens. But hey, it's September, leaves are changing, getting real dark really early, and you're here on the bus or on the train in your car, and you're listening to some guy from Vancouver talk about the White Stripes. When last week's episode came out, I went and was seeing the Hives at the Commodore Ballroom, one of the integral bands of the garage rock revival of the 2000s. And still to this day, when you talk about the White Stripes, usually the next three band names out of somebody's mouth are the Strokes, the Hives, and the Vines. And much like grunge, nobody's really similar. They just played through some older amps and dressed in tight jeans. Except for the Hives. They wore nice outfits. The concert was awesome. I saw the Hives in 2008 and at the Commodore. I was like just 20-ish, and it was like one of my favorite shows. And then I didn't see them until 2023. They basically didn't announce a tour for 9 years, or at least came to Vancouver for 9 years. And then they played this really, it's not a dump, but it's not like the nicest venue. It's the Rickshaw Theater in Vancouver, and they played there, sold out, packed to the gills. And I just had a great time there because they're such a good band. They're incredible live. And I'm like, well, I don't think I'll ever see the Hives again. And then I guess that tour went so well, or the response to the album went so well. They're like, hey, we're putting out another one, and we're coming right back to Vancouver. Essentially a year later, it feels like. And it was just as good. And it's a great band. Black and White album is probably their best album. It's one of my favorites. And so, yeah, then a day later, we flew off to Toronto. We came back, and I went to go see The Who on their farewell tour with my mom's boyfriend. And I've never seen The Who before. I like The Who. I didn't think I was crazy about The Who going in, and that changed. I don't know, I was all discouraged. Like, it's going to be a bunch of old guys on stage and off. Everyone's going to sit down, in the lower bowl. And there's one thing I can't stand, it's sitting for rock concerts. So yeah, I think I underestimated The Who and my enjoyment of The Who. And then perhaps it was a combination of maybe smoking a little pot on the way there with him and watching the Mariners clinch the playoffs on my phone, that it just became this core memory, this out of body experience. And it's like watching on my phone with the brightness down really low because I didn't want to be that guy, but I'm like looking at The Who, looking at my phone. One of the best sounding concerts I've seen. It's up there with Nine Inch Nails. I didn't wear earplugs, and my ears did not ring at all. It sounded perfect. And then during Who Are You? There's a part where Roger Daltrey, he's like, who the fuck are you? And then in the baseball game, this big play, this big hit for the Mariners happened. And it's like, Josh Naylor, who the fuck are you? That's who you are. So The Who was great. Squeezebox is a family anthem. They didn't play it, but they did play Eminence Front, which was incredible to see live. I was just, telling people, like, I've always loved that song, because I am a child of Grand Theft Auto. I think that song has two lives. It has its Grand Theft Auto Vice City life, and then it has its Cadillac commercial life. So I've always loved that song since Grand Theft Auto, and I've never watched a video of them play it live. And, like, it's one of the more unique sounding songs they have. And I'm like, I don't really know who plays what or how they recreate the sounds. So just watching it live was awesome. Great band, old as hell. So my first thought with Jack White, the White Stripes and the Who, is I remember watching a video a while back of Jack and Brendan Benson playing The Seeker on, like, acoustic guitars in, like, a bus. So this week is our second return guest, my podcasting compadre, Dan Saraceni. He joined us a few months ago to discuss Let's Build a Home, which is such a good episode, and just I smile when I think about that Let's Build a Home performance on Conan. So he's back again, and we're talking about Astro. With Astro now off the block, I'd say that's an old song and an integral song to the White Stripes' history. You might be asking yourself, well, what? I was thinking maybe it'd be Astro, would be one of the secret mystery songs. And maybe you're a first-timer here, and you're going, Ryan, what are these mystery songs you're talking about? Every week, we randomly pick a song, and then we have a murderer's row of guests at the ready who I think could work well with certain songs. Each week, we do one of those songs, and our main goal on this show is to get large enough, get loud enough to have Jack White himself come on and talk about not one, not two, but 3 mystery songs. So out of all this randomizing and pulling out of thin air, there are 3 songs that are kept beside me close to the vest, and I don't include those. I know 2 songs for sure. I know that I have 2 songs for sure that are locked down, like he will, if we are lucky enough to get Jack on this show. I know 2 for sure, but there's one that's kind of floating around, and I don't know. I'm pretty sure I'm locked in, but things change, man. That's why they didn't play with a set list. So the goal is to get Jack on this show sooner rather than later, or else I'm really pigeonholed into those songs. So how can we do that? You do that. You help me. You tell 7 friends. You don't be selfish, and you don't eat shellfish if you're allergic. Go tell 7 friends about this show. Share this show. Rate and review this show. You know how the podcast dance works. We want to infiltrate Third Man Records. We need to get Swank on here. We need to get Blackwell. We need to get Jack himself. We don't need, we would love to speak to Meg, but we respect privacy around this show. So, if you want to help us achieve our goal of getting Jack White on this show to discuss one of those 3 mystery songs, those are the things you do. Help grow the footprint of this show, help this show get louder, and help people notice it more and more. And if you really want to help out the show, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/hardestpodtopod. But buymeacoffee.com/hardestpodtopod. And every dollar that's contributed there gets reinvested right back into the podcast. This episode is coming out on Tuesday, September 30th. And in Canada, that is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And maybe if you're not Canadian, a relatively new day for Canadians. It is a Canadian Day of Memoriam to recognize the atrocities and the multi-generational effects of the Canadian Indian residential school system. It's a very important day in our country, and learning about the atrocities and the horrible things that took place to our Indigenous, in the 1900s and late 1800s. And it's not something to be taken lightly. If you're curious about all this, and this is not exclusive to Canada, there's generations of atrocities in North America, all around the world. Colonization is and was a really cruel and terrible thing. And yeah, it's something to acknowledge and something to reflect on. And much like Remembrance Day here in Canada, it's a solemn and serious day, and you just hope that Canadians or people around the world that are learning about this day take something from it. Time for the call to action. I need you to hit pause on this podcast. I want you to go to your streaming platform of choice, Apple, Spotify, the other ones, whatever you feel. Go to your search bar, look for the White Stripes' debut album, self-titled, came out in 1999. Track 8 on there, Astro, 2 minutes and 42 seconds. Boy, it's one of the longer ones. So this call to action is one, we want the song to be fresh in your mind the way it was fresh in my mind and Dan's mind when we talked about it. 2, we want everyone to bump those numbers. So when a new episode comes out with a new specific song, there's that little blip of streaming data. And it makes a blip and then maybe a larger blip. And then they start to notice. So when Slicker Drips, the Slicker Drips episode comes out, oh, why did a bunch of people just listen to Slicker Drips? Oh, it directly correlates with that. It is a metric, a piece of data that gets 2 birds stoned at once, to quote Ricky from Trailer Park Boys. 1, you listen to this badass track, and 2, you let the big wigs and the fat cats know about the hardest podcast to podcast. Okay, we hit pause. We listen to Astro. Let's talk about Astro. Here's me and Dan Saraceni. Our guest this week is a long-standing White Stripes fan covering the New York Islanders on the Islanders Anxiety podcast, which is entering its 10th season of covering the Long Island Boys, a decade of decadence, if you will. Step aside, Motley Crue. And this individual also has the acclaim of being the second repeat guest on Hardest Podcast to Podcast. He is Dan Saraceni. And Dan, you are the second repeat guest, and I did not hit record, so this is the second repeat start to this intro. What would you do differently compared to what you said mere moments ago?
I would absolutely do nothing differently. I once again praise the efforts of the great Mike Noble, who was the other repeat guest on the Hardest Podcast to Podcast. But listen, you just said it yourself, I've been at this game a long, long time, and the amount of times I've had to restart podcasts for all kinds of reasons, I can't even tell you. So trust me, you're in good hands. I totally get it.
It's funny, as long as you've been doing this and you think you got it down pat, humbled.
Nope. Always.
So the last time you were on this show, we discussed Let's Build a Home, a absolute banger of a track, a key staple of the style. One of the best live performances anybody will ever see on Conan O'Brien. And when I reached out to you to do a second episode, what went through your mind when you learned that you would be talking about Astro off of the self-titled album?
So this was one I thought about doing when we did our first episode. Let's Build a Home is one of my personal favorites too. And I was like, I didn't know if somebody would have had that already. When I reached out to you, you were just getting started, and I was like, boy, it's very presumptuous of me to just kind of throw a song out there, but I figured, why not? This was so I always like to have a backup plan, and Astro was sort of the backup plan for me. And when I think about this song and I think about this record, I don't remember exactly when I got the record. I think I got this and Just Style at the same time after getting White Blood Cells. I think I definitely got this with another record at the same time, another White Stripes record. And the thing I think most about it is that record is really very primal. It's very, we're gonna say the word simple and straightforward a lot probably in this episode, but it's very primal. Like it's very, very just blues rock, maybe alt blues, something kind of like that. It's heavy, but it's also very just, there's a riff and maybe a bridge, and that's about it. And Astro to me is very much in that wheelhouse, very much like the songs the White Stripes would make later on. I think I'm not a musician, but I think it's maybe 3 chords, maybe 4. I'm not even sure. It's got a very basic setup, very basic lyrics we'll get into later. And it's got time for some other stuff in there, like little elements that I really appreciate in music. So it's just a primal, there's something very like, early man about it. Like you're just drawn to this, especially if you're guys like our age, classic rock guys. It's just like, it's like honey to bees, it just pulls you right out of it because it's got all the elements you want.
It's a song that just really chugs along, and builds up, and it's E, G, A, and then a B, so it's essentially an AC/DC song.
Yeah, exactly. Right. When I found out, I had friends that played guitar in high school, and when I found out that like most AC/DC songs are played on the same string, I think Thunderstruck is all played on the same string. I was like, "What? You're kidding me?" Like, it's like that. How does that all sound like that? He's like, "That's just the way it works." I'm like, "That's unbelievable. It's crazy." So yes, it is very AC/DC.
This is exceptionally AC/DC. This is very Enter Sandman. This song, it appears on the first album. It clocks in about 2:12. We joked for Let's Build a Home that, that song was 1:38 and had, almost no lyrics. Half of the lyrics were yeah or woo.
Right.
Similar situation here. Dan, why are you drawn to songs with such limited lyrics and such a simple palette of words?
As I said last time, I'm not a lyrics guy. I'm not the type of person to like analyze lyrics. I'm not like sitting around poring over what somebody said, what they meant by it. Half the time, with the songs I listen to, I don't even know what they're saying most of the time. I love AC/DC. I have no idea what they're saying most of the time. I love Pearl Jam. If I could make out 10 words that Eddie Vedder is saying in any song, that's pretty good for me. My favorite band, we only got to this very briefly in the last episode, but my favorite band of all time is Van Halen.
Yeah.
And, whether it's Dave, whether it's Sammy, who knows what they're talking about. I listen to every song these guys have recorded. None of them make a lick of sense. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Like, it's just about the party, the vibe, the chug, as you were saying. So it doesn't. And what's funny, I guess we'll get to it later, but like, I didn't realize that Jack White sort of explained what the song was about, because I didn't think it was about anything. And it turns out, I guess it was. Not much of anything, but I'm not a huge lyrics guy. Like, if there's a turn of phrase or something that I find interesting, that's about it. But it's part of the song. That's whatever it is. It's all about the vibe.
That's exactly right. And the last episode I did was Bone Broke, the song off of Icky Thump, which until I sat down and read the lyrics, all I knew in that song was that he had just got another job at the liquor store. And I'm like, I completely agree with you. And I share that mindset of like, it sounds cool. Like the individual's making words. It works. I'm not listening for a heartfelt message with a song that is making my ears bleed. Like that's a different forum.
My daughter is 15. And so in addition to being into the current musics of the day, your Sabrina Carpenters and, Olivia Rodrigo's and all those kinds of people, musical theater is her entire life. She does all these shows and here in New Jersey where I live, and she wants to be on Broadway. That's her whole life. It's been that way since she's been a little girl. And so she listens to show tunes just, as like, recreationally, which is something I would never, ever do. And like, they all have meaning. Like the song is in the show to tell the story and to move the story along and tell about character and stuff. And so every once in a while we'll be in the car and she'll ask me, and this happens a lot with the Beastie Boys. She'll ask me like, what is this song even about? And I'm just like, it's about what every Beastie Boys song is about. It's about absolutely nothing. It's about, having more rhymes than Jamaica's Got Mangoes, or like, I got more suits than Jacoby and Myers. Like, it doesn't mean anything. The song doesn't have to, I like my sugar with coffee and cream was a personal favorite of hers, for like, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't, who cares? It just sounds cool. So I'm sure it means something to them in the moment where they're writing the song, but like, frankly, I don't care. It doesn't, as long as it sounds cool, it doesn't really matter to me. So,
well, it's funny you bring that up because in our research for this song, I consulted my White Stripes complete lyric book, thinking I would find a handwritten version or some primitive lyrics. Those don't exist because this song was recorded during. There was 2 sessions for the first album. One was at Ghetto Recordings, and the other was in Jack White's living room. This is one of the songs that was recorded in Jack's living room. And he basically went on to say that it was just an instrumental song that they had going. And when it came time to record their first album, it was a shotgun blast of how many things do I have written that can get on tape that kind of fit together. And so they took this instrumental song in Astro. It did not have any lyrics. Jack was just kind of making syllables and then just came up with these songs or with these lyrics. And so the lyrics are maybe Jasper does the Astro, maybe Lily does the Astro, maybe Jackson does the Astro, maybe Mama does the Astro, maybe Tesla does the Astro, maybe Edison's AC/DC. There is a hint. So Jack had went on to say that the Astro is whatever you do in secret that nobody knows about. So that's fine. That you can immediately get transported to a place of like, okay, it's whatever you're doing that you don't want people to know about. That's fine. That's what's happening in private. But then he goes on to say that like he also gives us a history of Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla,
right?
Because he says Tesla does the Astro, but then he says maybe Edison is AC/DC, which if you know about Thomas Edison. Apparently, he did not agree with that type of electrical current theorem. So that is why maybe Edison is doing the Astro, and the Astro for him is AC/DC.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I knew the lyrics of the song because like you could hear them; they're pretty easy to make out, but like they don't really have a ton of meaning. But when I read this in your notes, I was like, oh, now I get it, and I think you're exactly right. Like that's. What he's doing in his home that in secret is actually using Tesla's technology, AC/DC current, whereas Tesla's doing whatever he does for the Astro. I mean, to me, I thought the Astro maybe was like a dance that I didn't know about, like, kind of Land of a Thousand Dances, mashed potato, whatever, that kind of thing. Or, I hoped that maybe it was about like the Jetsons dog or something, but that, is probably too much to ask for. But this explanation, and I mean, you would know better than I would. I don't know how many songs Jack has ever actually explained in his career. He seems like the kind of person who would be like, well, what do you think the song is about? But this one, he's just like, no, it's just about what people are doing in secret. Although I guess he doesn't explain the whole Tesla Edison thing, but that's what we're going to extrapolate from.
I love it. That's how you interpret it. It's like, well, how much do you know about the electricity wars of the of the previous century?
Well, he is a fan of Tesla, right? Like, you talked about this on another show? Yeah.
He loves Nikola Tesla. If you watch the Jim Jarmusch film Coffee and Cigarettes, it's all he talks about in it. He has a Tesla coil, a lot of Tesla imagery for the White Stripes at this time. You mentioned the dog from the Jetsons. Jasper is one of so. Then he name drops Jasper in the song. Jasper is the name of one of Jack's old dogs. He also has another old dog, and both of these dogs were thanked in the liner notes of Icky Thump. The other dog's name, Elroy.
Wow. Oh, so wow. Maybe I'm onto something here. So Jack White, more of a Jetsons guy than a Flintstones guy, I guess. I could see that. That makes sense.
What would you? I don't know. I mean, the Jetsons are so futuristic. It's all about making things easier. I would say the Astro is so much more of a Flintstone song than a Jetson song.
Oh yeah, no, definitely audibly for sure. But maybe he's just a fan of the Jetsons. I'm more of a Flintstones fan myself, but I like the Jetsons. No, that's actually really cool. But then, as your notes say, he thinks to him it doesn't really sound like the Flintstones. It sounds like Detroit, which I've never been to Detroit. I don't really get that. I would think when I think of Detroit, I think of Motown kind of sound, which is definitely not what Astro is. But to him, this is the sound of his hometown. So that's pretty cool when he can put it into words like that, words and music like that.
Yeah. Allegedly, according to wherever I found this, though it's got to be true, Jasper and Lily are two characters in the Virginia Woolf novel To the Lighthouse. And there's also an assumption that Jimmy might refer to the subject of Jimmy the Exploder. So
yeah,
I'm starting to think that Jack was reading a book, watching the Jetsons, and recording a shitload of songs really quickly, and just pulled from one to the other.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that as simple as the lyrics are, it's interesting to find out that it was originally an instrumental, because as an instrumental, let's say it stayed that way, might not be the most exciting 2.5 minutes on the thing. It's cool, but it's like, the lyrics give it kind of more, more of I guess kind of a weight to it, and makes it more of a song. Whereas, if it was just an instrumental, it might be a little bit, but this is why it worked out the way it did. Cause I think
it's a simple song. I think as we try to create a formula for what made the White Stripes so special, you have a simple song, you have simple lyrics, or you have a simple riff, and maybe you want to overcomplicate it. Maybe you want to have a verse and a solo structure, or maybe you want to use this riff to tell a much more complicated story. Right. But everything is kept very simple, and just like everything about it is just that much more impactful. Like, this is a very simple plotting song. Meg is on floor tom and snare, occasionally hitting a crash, and it builds up and then it just goes right back down. If this was anything more than what it wound up being, I don't think it would be all that special or remarkable, but just the simplicity of it all heightens it. The sum of the parts are greater than the means.
It also uses a couple of things that are some of my favorite kind of tropes in rock music, and again, getting back to the the AC/DC thing. First of all, you got to have that solo in there, and I found out last time we were on that Jack apparently isn't a huge solo guy, but he always seems to sneak one in there. It's towards the end, it's very simple again, but again, very, very Angus Young of him. A little less bombastic than the usual Angus Young solo, but I love that it gets in there. I think, again, it gives the song an extra dimension. But my favorite thing about it is one of the things I love about, and this happens in a lot of the bands I listen to, is the mid-song tempo change. This is, it's just taking that same riff and just slowing it down by half. And all of a sudden you've created a whole new section of the song, and you can do whatever you want with it. Jimmy the Exploder does this as well. I mean, the White Stripes are one of a million bands that do this. To me, the all-time masters of the mid-song tempo change, nobody's ever done it better than them, is Black Sabbath. Sabbath, right from the first song of the first record, it's got this like plotting dirge, like the creeping doom of like whatever is chasing you, and then the next thing it's like super fast and the devil is chasing you through the woods, and you're doomed basically. And it's just like an Iron Man, of course, and like if there's I forget if it was one of those classic albums things, but it was maybe on Paranoid, where they talked to Henry Rollins. They had all these like big time guys on, and Henry Rollins is like, listen to the tempo change in Iron Man when all of a sudden it gets fast, and then it gets back to the slower main riff. He's like, go to your basement on your instruments and try and do that, and you will literally break your brain. Like, it's incredible that these dudes came up with this, and it's just like the basis basically for an entire genre of music. So anytime there's that mid-song tempo change, I'm immediately hooked. And it's like again, I'm not a musician. To me, all this is magic, that they can make this simple thing out of four chords or one string or whatever it is, even just a floor tom and cymbal. It's just like, it's crazy that they were able to do this. But that simple thing just gives the song another layer and another dimension, and just makes it much more epic than just a simple 3-chord thing probably would be in the hands of somebody else.
It's just a perfect example of just the chemistry that is within these special bands. Like, I mean, you think about Black Sabbath. I've been listening to a lot of Black Sabbath since Ozzy passed, and like listen to like The Wizard or Fairies Wear Boots, and you're like, if you are ever like in a group, in a musical group, and you are changing the tempo, like you can expect things to sway from one to the other. Like the White Stripes do not have. This isn't a Beatles song where Ringo keeps the perfect tempo the whole time. Like it's fucking rock and roll. It's going to be a little bit faster or slower, and that's fine. But like to stop on a dime and be like, okay, now it's this speed. Like it is impressive. And whether there's 2 people in the band or 4, like it's not an easy feat. and especially the way that, you know, the White Stripes clearly were creating and crafting this album. You know, they're coming up with this song on the fly. We don't know how many
crazy
times, you know,
Right.
like, you know, I don't know how many times that they've played this song or perfected it, but it worked. It sounded amazing, and it was instantly, you know, memorable on that track on the album. I can't imagine they did it more than once or twice, but it is a feat. But it's as you know, it's simple, but goddamn, it's anything but simple when you really think about it.
Which is really kind of the summary of the entire White Stripes. It's simple, but it's not simple, and I think that's probably what he was going for in a lot of these songs.
I was putting together clips of them playing Astro through the years, so that will be on the Hardest Pod to Pod Instagram account, and like just you can listen like I've heard this song a million times, and I'm like I'm now just watching. I'm watching Jack's body language. I'm watching Meg Like a Hawk, and them keeping it all together, and it's nothing short of incredible. And it just that's why like any song they've put out, it just immediately has so much more weight and depth to me because of how they decided to create it and how they decided to capture it. It's like you're not doing anything twice, it feels like.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But I mean, like you said, I mean, it's simple to us, but who knows how many times they could have been, you know, 100. There could have been 100 takes of this somewhere in a vault in Nashville, I guess, somewhere. But that's probably not the case. I know. They're going to do like Metallica just put out that box set where it's like, you know, whatever, 8 discs of like, you know, Nothing Else Matters. Take 22, take 38, take 45. It's like, I guess if you want to listen to all these, you can, but they could probably do something like that. But then again, some songs, it's just the first take and that's it. And they just go with that. And that's the end of it. So we'll never know.
I'm a Metallica guy. I'm sure you are too. 300 plus tracks of load demos and outtakes. And all you need to know about that is watch Some Kind of Monster. And they basically say, when they're talking about the songs, they go, we already really essentially polished a turd with load and reload. We shouldn't try to like finesse unready songs to be album ready. And I'm like, oh, so that's going to save me 8 hours of listening to load outtakes because there's nothing there. It's just drop D and more dropped D.
Yeah. No, thanks. I'm good.
Let's talk about this song's legacy. Jack White loves the album, their first album. He's gone on record and saying that I have a couple quotes here. Our first album is still my favorite because it sounds like Detroit to me. Jack loves, he thinks the quintessential rock and roll album of Detroit is Funhouse by the Stooges. And it's hard to disagree with that. Just this frantic kind of uncomfortable, edgy, aggressive rock that it's honestly, it sounds like you're recording an album with stolen gear and you're trying to wrap it up before the cops find you. Like
sounds about
frantic.
Right, yeah.
And he also says, I don't think we'll top it. Elephant is a close second. I love Elephant, but we're never going to capture that Detroit rock and roll like we did with the first one. It was good we got it out of the way. If we hadn't, I'd probably still be searching for that. Same with Let's Shake Hands, the first 45. We'll never top that, but as long as it's there, I can move on. When you hear Jack saying like what is his life gonna be like if he's like, all I need to do is record an aggressive, angry Detroit album, and like it'd be like a sneeze he couldn't get out. He's like, I got nothing.
It's very weird too to see a guy, and now, I mean, I'm sure he's not sitting here trashing his other albums, but it is weird for a person as accomplished as Jack White to be like, yeah, that first record is my favorite one. That's the best one. It's like, dude, what you put out like 6 other albums. Like, what are you talking about? You know, like that's anybody can say that. You're like, oh, that, you know, it's not like he's like a one-hit wonder where like, you know, that first album, because like a lot of bands, you know, their first album is great because, you know, as the cliche goes, you've had all these years to put it together, and
not the White Stripes,
like, not the White, right? But like by the time you get in the studio to record
lyrics,
yeah. Hey, listen, Thin Lizzy, I think, did that too for their Chinatown album. That was different. They they were completely out of it, and like Phil Lynott was just making up lyrics as he stood in front of the microphone, from what I hear. But some bands' first albums are, watershed moments. Like, again, Van Halen is one. Like, you listen to that record, no matter how much Van Halen you listen to, and you're like, yep, that's Van Halen. Queen's first album, I don't know why more people don't talk about this. That sounds like, it's Queen, right? Like, they're just this a very eclectic group, and you'd think that it would take them a long time to get to that point. Nope. Listen to the first Queen album. It's Queen. There could be no other Queen. That's it. Their first song off that first record is Keep Yourself Alive, which they probably did in concert for the next 50 years, right? So it's just, some bands are like that. But then some bands, it does take a while. Sometimes there's different members. I'm wearing my Iron Maiden shirt here. If you listen to the first couple of Iron Maiden records, Paul Di'Anno, the late Paul Di'Anno, is on, vocals, so it doesn't sound quite like the Iron Maiden that we came to know. But like, this sounds like the White Stripes, and I like this album quite a lot, but I don't know if I would call it my favorite. And so it's kind of funny that like Jack would go on to do all this other stuff. Obviously, they have huge hits coming down the pipe, in the future. But for some reason, this first one is still his favorite. So I wonder how many other bands kind of feel that way a little bit too.
You bring up a good point that it's like a band's first album is incredible because they've had so long to perfect it. You joke. I just made a joke mere minutes ago that, how could they perfect it when he's coming up with lyrics, while they record. But, Jack has spent a long time, he was exposed to Funhouse. I think he found it in the garbage, and like he had romanticized it, and like, this is my North Star for what rock and music is and what my hometown sounds like. So it's probably his favorite album because he's had a decade plus being like, I can't wait to make an album that is like this. And it just so happens that the avenue or the forum that allows him to do that is this red and white kind of band with a gimmick with his new wife, and who can't really play the drums, and he's like, well, shit, I guess I didn't think I'd be making my fun house with in this way, but here we are. Yeah.
Actually, I'm glad you brought up Meg. I mean, she's going to come up at some point. We talked last time. I'm a huge fan of hers. You're a huge fan. We're not going to know. There's no slander of Meg here at all, ever. But I do, obviously, again, it's very simple. It meant to be very simple here. All the songs are very simple, both from Jack's end and Meg's end too. But I do wonder if like this album, again, I like the album. It's not me. I'm thinking in terms of other people. I wonder if this is the album that unfortunately got Meg the reputation that she would have, even to today, of like maybe not being the most complex drum. She's not Keith Moon, she's not Neil Peart, and that's fine. She doesn't have to be. That's the whole thing. She doesn't have to be. But I feel like this, not that the drums are bad on this record, but I feel like they're so simple that I feel like people heard this, maybe heard one of these songs, maybe even, the song we're talking about tonight, and just decided Meg isn't that good, and that's it. Even though you could hear her getting much, much better as the records go on, and not that she was ever bad in the first place, but I feel like this, if there's one drawback and one maybe con to this record, it might be that it unfortunately set that precedent for Meg that she, has had to kind of fight against, although, she's obviously retreated from the public eye, so she's not really fighting anything, I guess, now. But, if you're online, you bring up the White Stripes, and it takes 2 seconds before somebody's like, "Whoa, Meg sucks," and then you gotta be like, "No, not really."
It's a great point to make, because you said off the top, we're going to talk about we're going to mention primal and simple and raw, and like those are overused adjectives to describe their abilities. What is very present on this album is their chemistry, but the abilities they're evolving, and that's what makes this kind of 6 album span so special. Is it's the same band. I talked about it in Bone Broke, where they had the demo for Bone Broke sounds like it could have been recorded in 1998. And it's just that when the band is not in a professional studio or being properly recorded, they are the same band. And you see the same band evolve, but just they sound the same, but sound different. They play the same, but play different. And unfortunately, like this first very primal album, you're listening to somebody learn the drums at a very, she's had drumsticks in her hands for under 2 years at this point.
Yeah.
And so it does. Some songs don't have it, but yeah, I completely agree. Some hipster journalist or blogger was like, these drums are pretty simple. It's like, yeah, well, don't worry. Not everything. It's not like that's forever. Get over it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but again, that's the evolution of bands. Like I said, some bands come out of the gate sounding like they're supposed to sound, and some take a while to get there. But yeah, no, I thought about that coming. So I listened to the whole record today for the first time in a long time, and I didn't remember how slow some of the songs were. To me, it was just like, yeah, they were bluesy. To me, I thought more of the songs sounded like Astro than didn't sound like Astro, when really it's really more of them sound just like straight up blues than anything else. And it's still very enjoyable. It's still a really, really good record. I love Jimmy the Exploder. I love, you mentioned it before, right after Astro comes Broken Bricks, which I like a lot very much as well. And a few others as well, Screwdriver, you've already done on this show. So it's still a really good record, but I forgot how bluesy it was. Like it's so blues.
This is a record that like is if you hear them play it live, it's almost every song I've heard them play live on this album or like on bootlegs is that half step faster. It's just a little bit more rocking, and I just think that they were like, I don't know. I think that it took a little while for their confidence and their to be more comfortable really came out. And I think that listening to this album, they're just like in their head counting 1 and 2 and like, let's not take this. Let's not get too crazy here. But yeah, it is a little slower at times. And it's just, I remember listening to Stripe, to the White Stripes podcast that Third Man Records put out about the first 2 albums. And I forget who said it, but they made the assumption that they thought that Jack didn't think that he'd have an opportunity to record these songs again. So that's why there's 17 songs. And it's like, we have a window. We have we have the funding, the hundreds of dollars to record this. Like, let's get everything on tape. And I think if they were a little more premeditated, I think the first album would look and seem a bit different. But at the same time, it's Jack's favorite album. It's the album he wanted to make that sounds like Detroit. So, hey, it is what it is.
Right. Real quick, you talk about like sort of pulling out all the stops, putting everything out there. That's also one of my favorite things about movies. If you ever wonder, like, a movie comes out and it's so great, it makes a ton of money, everybody loves it, and then they make a sequel and the sequel sucks. Well, usually that's because the first movie, a lot of times they just pulled out all the stops and they're just like, we're going with it. We don't care. This is our only shot at this. Let's put it out there and see if it flies. And then sometimes it works out so well that they screw themselves over by having to make a sequel. And I'm pretty sure I don't know if people could disagree. One of my favorite movies growing up, I saw it when I was 13. It changed my life, was Tim Burton's Batman. And then you find out later that they didn't know if anybody was going to see it, if anybody was going to care, if it was going to be this huge turd. Nobody knew. Like, it was, the first time Batman had been on a screen since 1969, with the old show. And so they just were like, screw it. We're going 100% on everything, full bore, and made a billion, jillion, $trillion and just, started an entire industry of itself because they didn't hold anything back because they didn't know if they were going to ever get a shot at it again. And of course, everybody ended up getting a shot at Batman later on, but they didn't know that at the time. So
I like the idea of Batman Returns being their to style. It's like, we need some more stuff here. Where's Danny DeVito?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, now what are we supposed to do? Well, we need a penguin. There's only one guy we can get, so it was him.
Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah, right.
That has molded and shaped the minds of
100%. Yes,
many of youths.
Yes.
Jack, talking about the first album, went on to say the first LP is really angry. He goes, then this is when they're promoting Distill or Distyle. This LP, Distyle, we tried to get a little cleaner. Maybe we've changed from anger to bitterness. I ask you, as somebody who just listened to the self-titled album and did an episode with a song from Distyle, is that an accurate way to paint the picture of those two albums?
I don't know if clean is the word that I would use, but I remember at the time listening, so I definitely had both those albums at once because I definitely listened to them back to back. And I found that the first one was a lot more straightforward. was a lot more blues, obviously, but rock blues as well. And the
Yeah.
style felt a little bit more avant-garde. Now, that being said, I think the style a little bit more than this one. I think we talked last time, that might be my favorite record of theirs.
Yeah.
It's got, pretty good looking, obviously, and a few others. Let's Build a Home, obviously, which we talked about last time. So it's a little bit, the sound is definitely cleaner. That's for sure. I get where he's coming from there. But just in terms of like the musical compositions, to my untrained ears, one sounds a little artier than the other one, which is a little bit more like, I guess, Detroit, if you want to call it that. But if one might be Detroit and one maybe is Chicago, I don't know, or Madison or something like that, some other Midwestern
Madison,
city
Wisconsin.
that's a little bit less kind of rough and tumble the way Detroit is. I've borrow mine. I've never been to either of these places, so I'm just going by what I know from TV and movie, RoboCop. But that's about it.
So I think that you probably did buy White Stripes history based on RoboCop. I think that you probably bought the White Stripes first album and Distill at the same time because they were reissued and re-released by their major label, by V2, which was, I think, Virgin, in 2002. And Pitchfork reviewed both albums. Distill got a better rating. Pitchfork gave their first album an 8.3. That is with the hype of the band kind of building them up. I don't think that this would have gotten an 8.3 if this landed on a Pitchfork reviewer's desk in the fall of '99. But they say this about the album: the record is saucy, but ultimately not as arresting as the others, even though the arrangements are just as willingly unadorned. Well, except for the tunes where Meg's approaching army tank tread drums are reverbed, as if the band is masking their spare sound the way straight-to-video horror movies attempt to camouflage their low production values. They call Slicker Drips Sucker Drips, is uncharacteristically thin, which I will agree with, and the sassy plot of Astro date backs to the cough Cramps. How much you know about the Cramps?
Nothing, absolutely. I've seen shirts. That's about it.
They're like a surf rock, psychobilly punk band. They're awesome. They got a song called "Bikini Girls with Machine Guns." It kicks ass.
Awesome.
It's not the most stretching of comparisons.
But that's what you do on the first record, though. Like, that's what you I mean, for God's sakes, they're covering Robert Johnson and Bob Dylan on this record. Like, that's what first records are for, right? They're for covers and trying something out. And I mean, Aerosmith was handling Rolling Stones complaints for an entire decade. Like, people saw them, saw a lead singer with long hair and big lips and were like, oh, this guy's just Mick Jagger. Like, he couldn't help that he was born that way. Like, what are you going to do, And the music, why wouldn't you be like a Rolling Stones band in the early 70s, And it wasn't until 1989 when people were like, oh, no, this is Aerosmith. This isn't just like, and then by then the Black Crowes had been like, oh, these guys are just doing the Rolling Stones. Well, again, like, what are you going to do? Like, they're, a hard rock band with 5 people, like, so it just, I don't know, that kind of stuff when it's like, oh, they're ripping somebody off. That's what rock bands do. Like,
everything's a Black Sabbath riff. Just get over it.
Yeah, right. You just take it and you got to start someplace, right? So you might as well start by ripping somebody off. My favorite ripoff story, and again, you never know with these guys if it's true or not, but you're a Kiss fan, I know as well. I read an interview, I think it was Gene, maybe it was Paul, who my favorite Kiss song is Deuce. That's my favorite one.
Yep, great song.
The opening track on their live record. And I think it was Gene who was like, that riff for Deuce is just the Rolling Stones Bitch played backwards.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
The same riff, just played backwards. And I'm like, well, first of all, Bitch is my favorite Rolling Stones song. So it stands to reason why I would like both these songs. But again, I don't know, so I have to take his word for it that that's the truth. But if it is, hey, great, good for you. That's genius that you just took a great riff and just flipped it backwards and made another great riff out of it. So again, that's rock.
If we're talking about ripoff stories, I love, like, it came out I don't know when I don't know how long it has been open and public information, but Lars Ulrich basically saying that, like, oh yeah, the breakdown in Master of Puppets is just Sweet Home Alabama.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
that's a Cliff
Oh, man.
Burton. Cliff Burton
That's
told
really-
him to do that.
That's really funny. Oh, I never
Yeah.
know. So now I got to listen to Master Puppets when we're done here.
Yeah,
I
if
haven't
it's
even thought
not
about
that, I think it's Puppets. It's something off Puppets, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's Master of Puppets.
That's really funny.
Jack White also has regularly talked about ripping people off, whether in jest or seriously. In the documentary in Might Get Loud, when he was meeting Jimmy Page in The Edge, he basically is, in the car to the shoot. He's like, I'm gonna try and learn their tricks so I can steal from them. And he jokingly said when him and Meg went to go to Loretta Lynn's house for dinner after they dedicated White Blood Cells to them, Jack joked that he was looking around the house looking for something to steal. And whether how in jest or not, I like it because rock and roll is about theft.
Sure, 100%.
There's in terms of music videos, there's no music video for Astro, but it is available on the Under Blackpool Lights live DVD they did in 2004, and you can see them play it on the Under Great White Northern Lights DVD, which was profiling their 10th anniversary gig in Nova Scotia. Yeah. Speaking about live history, live versions, the performance history of Astro. It's the 21st most played White Stripes song live at 177 times. It was first played at the Gold Dollar on February 6th, 1999. Very curious. I'm gonna have to go track that down. I'm curious if there were lyrics for it because I don't know when the lyrics came into fruition. And the last time it was played was their final proper gig on the Icky Thump Tour, July 31st, 2007. So it's a song that Jack and Meg kind of always went back to, much like Screwdriver off this album or Cannon. John the Revelator, just tracks that always brought them right back to who they were and what the whole point of this was.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of surprised that it was played that much because I don't really talk that much about the White Stripes with my friends or my family. Like, I'm really the only one that I know that's as into the band. I mean, I'm not as into them as you are, but I'm the only one who's I know of that is really super into them. So I didn't know that this was that popular a song amongst them. But I feel a little bit, and we talked again a little bit about this in Let's Build a Home, like it's the kind of riff that can just be shoehorned into another song. And I noticed that in some of the videos we have here, it's like it's a 5-song medley. Of course, that's really still only 6 minutes long, but it uses bits and pieces of like 5 different songs. Yeah. And this is one riff you can just throw in there. People hear it, they go crazy, they recognize it, and they go right back to another song. So I feel like there's probably a lot of that going on in some of the White Stripes catalog, but I didn't realize it was this popular. And I didn't realize that it was like played at Bonnaroo and stuff like that too. So it's I guess a much bigger song than I thought. And I'm not the only person who have really kind of like latched on to this one. Yeah.
Jack has brought it with him as a solo act. He first played it at Bonnaroo in 2014. That would have been on the Lazaretto tour. And he played it as frequently as, back in April in Grand Rapids in the great state of Michigan, the birthplace of the White Stripes. I included a couple versions, a couple of links from the live versions. There's one from this year where they're playing Icky Thump and Morning at Midnight, but they start playing Astro. And this is with a 4-person band. And immediately I had to include that because my fuck does this band look like they are having a blast playing this song live. It's right. They just do Icky Thump, which is kind of all over the place. It's got tempo changes, but you look at they start playing Astro and Bobby on the keyboards. He's essentially headbanging to Astro of just a pure easy fun rock and roll song that you can I can move around a little bit and I won't fuck it up. It looks like an incredibly fun song to play live.
I can imagine it probably is. Again, it's probably not the hardest song to play, but you can jam out to it. You can
Yeah.
go as long as you want. You can work other songs into it. Again, like why does everybody, end up, not everybody, but like why do a lot of bands end up covering AC/DC? Why do a lot of them do, Let There Be Rock, or, It's a Long Way to the Top, or a whole lot of Rosie? These are just riffs that you can just play forever. Back in Black, like they're just riffs you can just play forever. Everybody loves it. They get all hyped for it, and you can solo and do whatever you want for it. So yeah, that video was cool. I also liked the one from Madison Square Garden in 2015 that you included. That was a cool one as well. But that one had, I don't know if you've talked about him in the other episodes you've done, but Jack's drummer at the time was a guy named Daru Jones, who plays the most insane drum kit anybody's ever seen. And I found out today, I was on the bus coming home from work today, and I was like, well, yeah, what's the name of that guy again? So I looked it up again, and Daru is a very controversial figure in the drum world, I guess, particularly on Reddit.
Really?
Although I guess nothing needs to be that controversial to be controversial on Reddit, as you all know. Yeah, there's people that are like, this thing gives me like I'm getting out, anxiety just looking at him play. My back is hurting. Why would he do this? And then people are like, this guy's a genius. He's amazing. Like, so there's a lot of different interpretations and different feelings about it. But when you see it, man, when you see him play, I remember, I don't forget what I watched the first time. It was a Saturday Night Live performance with Jack that he was doing. And I was like, what is that guy playing? And it was just like, that's unbelievable. How is he doing this? And I was like, I hate to say it, but I was almost like, yeah, Jack White, that's cool. But what's that guy doing?
Yeah.
So shout out Daru Jones, because that's pretty wild that he was, so that's a cool clip. You should just check it out.
I remember seeing when I saw him, started seeing clips of him performing. I'm like, oh my God, that drum kit's falling over. Like, how did that happen?
Is he okay? Like, what's happening? But no, he's a very accomplished guy from New York. So it's pretty cool.
When you watch, I said, you've listened to this song with Meg, you've listened to it live with Meg. Playing the song without Meg and playing the song with a full band is the magic of Astro still there? Does it have the same energy, or is it something completely different?
It's a little bit of both. It's a little different, but I think the energy is still there. And again, you can see in the, this was surprising to me again, because I didn't, this is what happens when you don't see a band live and you don't kind of get into the culture of it, but you see that people respond to it. And you can see that it's different. It sounds different. I mean, the 4-piece, is going to make it different, but people still love it. And a riff is a riff, and a great riff is a great riff. And this song has a great riff. It's not as, notable as some of the ones we've mentioned here tonight, but a great riff is a great riff. And to me, that's everything. Like a song with a great riff, that's what I look for. My musical choices have not changed all that much since I was in the last 25 years or so. I would say, in fact, in the last 25 years, the White Stripes and the Hold Steady are pretty much the only two bands that I've added to the list of bands I had when I was in college, basically. And again, what they don't sound alike, but what connects them? They write great riffs. They're straightforward. They can play face melting solos when they want to. The songs are, the lyrics sometimes don't make any sense to you, but they're, important to them. And it's a vibe, and you can get into it and enjoy it. And the riff, a great riff will never go out of style. It'll never get old or tired. And, I can still listen to Deep Purple or Metallica or whatever. And I've been hearing these songs a million times. I'd never get tired of them because the riffs are just so good. And Astro is right up there.
Two quick things. It was Jack's touring keyboarder, Bobby Emmett. I think that's his last name. He commented on one of our reels when Ali Sheldon from the local band Weightless, who opened up for Jack White, was on there, and she was, we're talking about Meg's approach to drumming and how, and just how unique it is. And he commented saying, like, any time that Jack's band is tracking or rehearsing his songs, the most difficult ones to do are White Stripes songs, and it's Meg's parts, because no drummer who was taught by somebody, no drummer who was taught there is a proper way to play would approach drumming like this.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
what makes them so special. And that's what makes
Yeah.
Astro so, catchy and so memorable.
Yeah.
Because if it was a drummer who there is a right way and a correct way and a wrong way, I don't
Yeah.
think that they would play like Meg did. And that's why
Yeah.
this simple riff and simple lyric stands out, because everything
Right.
just comes together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is simple, but it's something that
Yeah.
we shouldn't forget.
Yeah.
My-
Again, I'm not a musician, but I play a lot of Rock Band, the video game, and I play drums a lot on it. And if there's one thing I've taken from that game, if it is in fact those charts are meant to be, believed and be like, kind of one-to-one comparisons to the real charts, it is that there really are no rules. Like these drummers and kind of, there's some rules, but a lot of them are just sort of making stuff up as they go along. And you'll be playing a song like, wait, what was that? Like, why would you play that there? Well, you just did. And it doesn't, like, to your ears, it sounds like a normal part, a regular part, but it's actually something else going on under there. So yeah, but I can see that. I can see Meg, kind of throwing off a classically trained drummer because she was just kind of doing her own thing. It makes her very unique.
A classically trained drummer or just an asshole.
Also true.
One more thing. You mentioned about memorable riffs and the simplicity of like AC/DC, and that's why so many bands cover Let There Be Rock. Do you know that the White Stripes have covered Let There Be Rock live?
We talked about this, last time.
Okay,
good. That's pretty cool. And again, the greatness recognizes greatness. Real recognizes real. Jack White has written a million great riffs, and I know that he can recognize that, like, a band like AC/DC or that came before him also writes great, whether it's the Stooges, whether it's, the MC5, I'm sure he's kind of followed as well. But that's the thing. That's what makes these songs timeless. Like, we're talking about a song that came out in 1999. And we just spent 50 minutes talking about this song that is over 25 years old. And I will never get tired of this because that riff, if it's got the riff and it sticks, and people like different kinds of music. Again, my daughter loves musical theater. My wife is straight pop. She loves, 90% of the music she listens to is either Cher, Madonna, or Lady Gaga. And then there's like a tiny 10% piece of everybody else, That's what they listen to. They love that kind of stuff. It's the vibe. They love it. That's what makes them feel good. To me, a great riff is a great riff, whether it came out in 1955, 2001, 1999, 2025, doesn't really matter. So these songs will go on forever.
One more thing that popped in my head. It's just, I had to vocalize it. I remember one time I was driving and the local rock radio station in town, when they have like, oh, here's our community minute of what's happening. Like, oh,
right.
Black Rebel Motorcycle Club is coming to town, or go to the arts crawl. Well, I was listening. I'm like, they're using a loop of Astro as the underbed music for this. And I'm
Whoa.
like, I don't know how I feel about this. Nobody should know about this music but me.
Wow. That's really wild. That's good. First of all, I hope they cleared that with whoever they need to clear that with. Second of all, that's really cool that they, I mean, I wonder how many other people noticed that too. Like, especially like, wow, what song is this? But your ears are highly attuned to this, as we would expect. But that's pretty wild. Of all the songs, right? Go figure.
Just like, have to pull over on the side of the road. Wait a minute.
Right.
Dan, as we're wrapping up here, you just said it. We spoke about this song that's 26 years old. We spoke about it for nearly an hour. When you turn on Astro again, the next time you listen to it, what are you going to think about?
I'm definitely going to think about Detroit, a place I've never been to, because that's where what Jack White thinks of the song and where it puts him. I'm definitely going to think about things people do in secret that nobody knows about, and maybe Thomas Edison or Nikola Tesla. And I'm going to think about Daru Jones and his crazy drum kit. And I will think about this podcast and you, who have obviously illuminated so much about the White Stripes during the course of this series. I love the show. I'm glad to be on again. And, it's just, again, like I said, you're helping a lot of people rediscover a band that they liked in the first place. And, it's life. People, you listen, we all take in lots of different stuff, especially now, every minute of the day, we're all taking in all kinds of information. It's easy to lose track of something that you really like. And then, you want to go back and reappreciate it, reevaluate it, listen to it with new ears. And you're doing that with this show. So I definitely think of that when I think of. Now I think of that when I listen to any White Stripes song now, but especially this one.
That was Dan. I'm Ryan. That was Dan and Ryan talking about Astro. Hope you enjoyed it. I want to hear your thoughts. I have a couple of listeners that send me regular emails. Feels like an old friend or a uncle in a different time zone. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on the episode. Let me know your thoughts on the series. I'd like to hear from you. You can DM me or send an email to hardestpodtopod@gmail.com. hardestpodtopod@gmail.com and buymeacoffee.com/hardestpodtopod if you want to support the show. We'll be back next week. Got a good episode coming up. I can't wait. And that about does it. Feels good to be back in the swing of things. Back at home. No moving boxes in sight. Back on Vancouver soil. No flights. Nothing on the calendar. Just podcasts. And with that being said, the Hardest Podcast to Podcast is hosted and produced by Ryan Schaap. Artwork by Catlin Likely. Amanda Schultz is our assistant editorial producer with a written warning. Mike Noble is our gator.